Hi, everybody. This is Dr. Johnson, and this is a very brief introduction to sports nutrition. And we're going to be looking at fueling a young athlete. It's important to understand that during high school, some students can be involved in several different sports, and so how can their nutrition improve their performance? For those of you that don't know, the CSSD stands for Certified Specialist in Sports Dietetics. So, what this means is that I have an extra certification that specializes in sports nutrition. This is a huge passion of mine, and being able to give back to students and help them understand the importance of adequately fueling their bodies is important. I first want to start off by talking about the importance of physical activity. We all know that we need to move our bodies more, but I like to show this stat because with just 1 hour, so how we would read this is our risk for disease and then the number of hours of physical activity throughout the week. So just by having 1 hour per week of vigorous physical activity, we decrease all-cause mortality. As we increase those hours throughout the week, we're going to then decrease other chronic diseases such as diabetes, cardiovascular disease, depression, dementia, breast cancer, and colon cancer. Why is physical activity and nutrition correlated? Well, there's two different pathways that we can look at. Muscle is very metabolically active. So what happens is the muscle uses a lot of these extra glucose and extra fats that are in our system and processes it into energy a lot quicker than our fat storage. This can help especially alleviate risk for chronic diseases such as diabetes and heart disease. In addition, nutrition and certain nutrients can aid or impede performance. So it's important to choose appropriate nutrients to fuel your performance and also impact recovery. In addition, we can look at as we have more muscle, the more health we have because it's so metabolically active. So sports nutrition has kind of three primary purposes. The first one is to prepare the body for activity. The second is to adequately fuel the body during activity. And then the third is recovery. It's important to be adequately hydrated and adequately fueled for all three phases of the performance. So let's first look at how we fuel our body. So what fuel source is being used during activity? This is a really fancy system. Overall, there's basically three energy systems, which goes a little beyond what's necessary for you to know. But we have the phosphagen system, the glycolic system, and the mitochondrial respiration system. Essentially, the easiest way to remember this is how hard your body is breathing. So we look at exercise intensity over here on the left-hand column based off of this value called a VO2 max. VO2 max is basically a measurement of how hard you're breathing. So, an easy rule of thumb is the harder you're breathing, so you're huffing and puffing, the higher intensity it is, right? So, if you give an example here, exercise intensity of less than 30% VO2 max, this would be like a leisure walk along the beach. Whereas exercise intensity over 80% VO2 max, this is going to be an all-out 30-second sprint, right? So you are just huffing and puffing. It's hard for you to get oxygen in, whereas that walk along the beach, you can easily get adequate oxygen in. When you are in that level, so things like walking on the beach, you're going to be using mainly fat in the muscle to perform. Whereas when you are huffing and puffing and you're sprinting, you're going to be using primarily carbohydrates and as well as this thing called phosphocreatine. Sprinting involves the phosphagen system, where glycolytic system involves things like playing basketball or football or water polo, where there's a quick sprint and then you're relaxing for a little bit. Water polo is actually a bad example there. The mitochondrial respiration are things when you are running or hiking for a long duration of time. So, what we want to do before activity is we want to make sure that we are adequately fueling our bodies. So, before activity, we can improve performance by about 12 to 15% if we have adequate carbohydrates and a little bit moderate protein. Carbohydrates help to provide an immediate source of glucose or energy to be utilized by our bodies, where moderate protein long term after our workout helps to improve our protein synthesis. Good examples of some food before would be something very light, like a half a banana. It's also dependent on time. So if you are someone who wakes up in the morning and goes to swim practice, let's say high school, right? In high school, I swam and I had practice before school started. I don't have a lot of time to let my food digest. So therefore, 30 to 60 minutes before my exercise, I just want something really light, like a banana or pretzels, maybe even just a little bit of sports drink. Where if I had practice after school, I would want to have a full meal at lunchtime. So that full meal would be more carbohydrate rich. So you can see this example here would be a sandwich, an apple, and chocolate milk. That's going to make sure that I have enough glucose still in my system after school that I'm able to provide my muscles with that immediate energy source. It is not recommended to have high fat or high fiber foods for at least 2 hours before your activity. The reason for this is because high fat and high fiber foods take longer to digest. When we are exercising, blood is going to our muscles in order to provide the necessary nutrients for muscle contraction. So no blood will be going towards the GI system to help digest those foods. Therefore, that food is going to sit in your stomach kind of like a rock, and it will cause a lot of GI upset, which is kind of like a stomach ache. What about during activity? During activity, fueling the body is going to be dependent on how long you're exercising and as well as the intensity of that activity. Anything less than 45 minutes, focus on hydration, and the only thing is needed is water. There's some misconceptions that we need to have a Gatorade or some type of sports drink during this time frame. However, that is not necessary. When you have higher intensity that's lasting from 45 to 75 minutes, it is suggested to now start incorporating some carbohydrates into the diet. So these are things like Gatorade or even glucose chew. Applesauce is another great one too because it can easily be digested. So this would be during like a halftime game, right? The snacks and everything that comes out. And then if you're doing 2 hours or more, it is recommended to now have more carbohydrates, and they suggest about 30 to 60 grams of carbs per day. So 30 grams is about one medium-sized banana and one handful of raisins. So this is when we're going to need additional carbohydrates coming in because our body now is tapped out of our storage carbohydrate. What about after a workout? After a workout, it's very important to get adequate fuel to recover and help repair the tissue damage. After activity, hydration is important. We lose a lot of electrolytes and everything from our sweat, and so we need to make sure that we can replace that loss. In addition, we need all three macronutrients. Carbohydrates help to replace the glycogen, and glycogen is our backup storage tank of fuel for the next time that we go into an activity. Protein helps repair muscle tissue. When we're exercising, we are actually creating these little microfiber tears in our muscle. And in order to repair that, we need amino acids. And amino acids we get from our protein foods. It is suggested that about 20 grams of protein is sufficient. And then finally, we want to focus on unsaturated healthy fats because that can help reduce inflammation. One of the best recovery drinks, according to Nancy Clark, who's one of the most famous sports dietitians, is that chocolate milk is better than any sports drink for recovery. Chocolate milk is also a great option instead of these highly expensive and unregulated protein shakes. If you're not aware, things like whey protein or protein bars that are considered supplements are not regulated by the FDA. Therefore, you don't know exactly what you're getting in it, and there could be bad things in it. Why is chocolate milk so great for recovery? Well, first, it contains two electrolytes, sodium and potassium. We lose sodium and potassium in our sweat, and it's important to replace that. In addition, chocolate milk also is rich in calcium, and calcium can help support bone health. Chocolate milk also has a fast and slow protein. There are two different types of protein found in cow's milk. The fast-acting protein is whey. The slow-acting protein is casein. This is important because whey supplies amino acids immediately to the muscle, and then an hour or two after you drink that chocolate milk, casein is still continuing to provide amino acids for that tissue repair. No other milk alternative will have both of these proteins. Milk is also 87% water, so it can help contribute to hydration. Chocolate milk is a simple sugar, and it provides a quick, fast repair to restore those glycogen. And finally, it's a great ratio of carb to protein of 3:1. Unlike white milk, the chocolate milk has the additional carbohydrates and provides that 3:1 ratio. So let's talk a little bit more about hydration. Hydration is important before, during, and after. Some things that are not recommended during physical activity would be fruit juice, carbonated drinks, and caffeine. Caffeine will dehydrate you slightly more. Carbonated beverages will create a feeling of bloat, and fruit juice is too high in carbohydrates that it can cause that GI upset. If you are dehydrated, you can have early fatigue, which is why it's important to have adequate hydration before, during, and after. Athletes need about half of their body weight in fluids, and they must replace losses post-workout. In some collegiate programs and professional programs, athletes are weighing in before and after to see how much water weight is lost during their activity, and then replacing that in adequate fluid ounces. In summary, food is necessary to fuel the body and also promote recovery. An underfueled athlete can have major complications, especially when we're looking at these adolescent years where their body is still growing. It's important for people to understand that food is fuel, and that it can enhance their performance greatly.